OTAN, Outreach and Technical Assistance Network.
Digital Citizenship for the Adult Education Classroom. OTAN Technology and Distance Learning Symposium 2019.
Hi everybody. Hopefully you're here for Digital Citizenship. If not, feel free to get up and leave. But I hope that you're not and you're here for this. We'll be talking about behavior in the adult ed classroom. And we have a very short time today, so I've tried to put together some very practical things that you can take back and use right away, hopefully. If you're interested in this topic or think it would be useful for other people at your agency or institution, OTAN can send someone out to do a longer hands-on workshop with you, okay? For those who don't know me, my name is Karla Frizler, and I'm a subject matter expert for OTAN. I've been in adult education for almost 25 years, and Susan can vouch for me. I'm older than I look. My teaching background is in ESL, and my particular interests are in teaching writing and using instructional technology. And my interest in technology is all about communication and collaboration. And this academic year, I've been providing educational leadership consulting to agencies and institutions throughout the state in regard to strategic planning, grant writing, social media marketing, and things like that. So, what are we going to do today? First, we're going to define what the difference is between digital literacy and digital citizenship. Then we're going to talk about the ISTE Digital Citizen Standard. Does anybody know what ISTE stands for, besides Susan? Susan, what does it stand for? Right, International Society for Technology and Education. So what the ISTE standards are, they're a group of standards, and in your handout, they're on the back side of the cover. There's a set of standards for educators, and there's a set of standards for students. And they kind of bring together really why we use technology. And they're not focused at all on the tools themselves, but how and why we use the tools. So they're a great set of standards if you're ever writing, creating courses or lessons or things to come up with your objectives and your outcomes for your students. And there's one that's specific to digital citizenship, and we'll talk about that today. Most of the time we're going to spend learning some strategies for covering digital citizenship in your classroom, regardless of what subject matter you teach. And then hopefully learning how to model good citizenship as an educator, right? You can tell your students to do all kinds of things, but if you do the opposite, what are they going to do, right? Just like kids. So the expected outcomes are just that you have a general idea of what digital citizenship is, that you have a knowledge of some activities that you can use right away, and that you have some familiarity with resources that are available to you for additional information. So each of you should have a handout. If you don't, my lovely assistant in the back will be able to help you. And in there you have my contact information and lists of all kinds of articles for yourself, for your students, lots of lesson plans and activities that are already developed, especially from Common Sense Media and different groups like that you can use without having to develop anything. Okay, so online spaces can amplify students' voices while breaking down barriers to civic participation. And if we think about this quote, that can be a good thing or a bad thing, right? So if you amplify people's voices when they're saying something positive, that's great. You can also amplify voices that may be saying things that are negative or hurtful or might feel like an attack. And this is part of what we're going to be talking about today. Tell me, how many of you have used some form of technology today? Okay, everybody, right? It's a loaded question. We're at a technology conference. Tell me, just very quickly, what are some of the technologies you've used?
It's my phone today.
Your phone?
Yeah.
And
My map quest to get here in the car.
okay, so GPS,
GPS.
email. How about you? Same? Texting. Okay. Did anybody stop at the ATM? No? That's, well, but that's technology. Right, but, right? But sometimes when you're working with students who are not particularly tech savvy, and we still have some of them, I find that asking questions like that helps everybody feel like they're involved, because you might have a whole group of students, phone, phone, computer, computer, and you've got that one student in the back. It's not raising their hand. So, you know, have you done self-checkout at the grocery store? You know, whatever you can come up with that they might have done. Okay, so when I use the term digital citizenship, what does that mean to you? And Armida, can you make some notes on the board? Thanks. So what do you think of when you hear that term?
Behaving yourself online.
Ooh, that's good. So behaving yourself online. Or internet presence.
Yeah,
Control your internet presence.
Right.
Yes.
Being responsible with what you search and look for.
Okay, and just being responsible online. It's searching, speaking, sharing your ideas, how you respond to other people, things like that. Yes?
Following the social niceties.
Ooh, I like that. Social niceties. Well, this is a big question. Why do we call it digital citizenship? Shouldn't it just be citizenship, that you just treat people well, you do things respectfully, responsibly? When it comes back to that, it's just in an online environment, right? But why do we need to specify digital?
Because people have a tendency to feel a little bit more emboldened when they're hiding behind a screen.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of this issue, is that anonymity that people can have, and right, that feeling emboldened. That's a very good way of putting it. Right. You're not even talking about these are kids that don't know what they're. You're talking about adults who should know regular citizenship.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so one of the first things that you want to do in your class, if you're using technology in your classroom, doesn't matter what you're teaching, what level your students are, is that you want to create a set of norms or rules or guidelines, right? And the easiest thing would be for you to just sit down and put that in your syllabus and give it out to your students and tell them, this is how you behave and this is what you do, right? But I think we all know that having the students come to those conclusions themselves, they will probably have more buy-in, right? So this is what we're going to do right now. And I want you to pretend that I'm your teacher and you are my students. So in our class, let's say we're going to use Canvas this semester, which is a learning management system like Moodle or Blackboard, to keep all of our course assignments and things organized, right? And that's where I'm going to give you your assignments, where you're going to send me your completed assignments. And you also have the opportunity to have online conversation with your classmates and with me. And what I want you to do today is to come up with a list of what's okay and what's not okay as far as communicating with your classmates in that online discussion group. Okay, so I want you to maybe get into groups of, I would say like 3 or 4. You could just do it with a pair if you want to. And you're going to come up with three things that you should do online and 3 that you shouldn't. And I'm going to give you 4 minutes. You're just starting to get into your conversations, right? But you can see how engaging this would be. Now, depending on what your goals are, your first day of class, you may want this to be very short and sweet and quick and dirty, and just have everybody fill out, a form for each group, and then collect it, and you put it together and send it out as the teacher. And in fact, that could be your first assignment, is that students have to, go to your Canvas page or whatever you use and download the guidelines, sign it, give it back to you, something like that. But, for me, I teach ESL, right? I would take something like this and I would turn it into the entire class session, right? And I would really get a lot of mileage out of this. And instead of asking you to do 3 do's and don'ts, I might ask each group to come up with 10. And then we have to come up and write them on the board. And then we have to vote and decide what we're going to use. There's so much you could do language-wise with this. But I think also if you're teaching a CTE class, computer classes, to have this element from the very beginning. You're not just using tools or learning about tools. It's how you use them and how to be respectful. And I think sometimes if you address those things overtly, you might avoid some of, I'm sorry, what's your name? What you shared about that problem in that group, Amber. you know, sometimes it just takes bringing awareness up front rather than waiting for something to happen. And you wouldn't expect that to happen with a group of adults, would you? But, you know, you address it up front. So let's just go around real quickly and tell me either one do or one don't that your group came up with. Think before you write. And you could extend that to think before you speak in class too. How about this group? Right, it's like this in writing.
Right.
Don't do it
Right.
unless you really are trying to emphasize something. Yes, see, I got your attention. Right, or read something completely before you send a response. Yes, a lot of us could use that reminder. How about over here? Ooh, that's actually a really good one. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, don't use it as a platform for your business or something like that. So you get the idea. And then I would recommend, if you have anything in particular, like something for me is not to use profanity or personal attacks or things like that. If I want to make sure that that gets in the list, I might give that as an example. You guys all jumped in your group because you're teachers and you know what you're doing. But you know, with students, what I probably would have done up front is I would have given them an example of a do and an example of a don't. And the examples that I would give would be the ones that I want to make sure get on the list. Okay. So again, this is something, it doesn't matter what you're teaching, you can incorporate something like this. And really, I think you should at the beginning of your class, just to set the tone, set the standard, but the students come up with the ideas. And again, you know, you could have the students, you know, type these up, make posters. I mean, there's so much that you could do to extend this, but because of the sake of time, we're going to move on. So, what's the difference between digital literacy and digital citizenship? Okay, how would you describe digital literacy? Okay, so it's really more about the use and like kind of the tools themselves, right? So the mastery of tools, skills, functions, what you do online, okay? And then what is citizenship?
How you behave.
How you behave, right? So an example of literacy would be participating in an online discussion and, for example, knowing how to log in, knowing what a thread is, and that someone posts, someone replies, all the replies are connected, things like that. But digital citizenship and how you behave would be respecting others' opinions. Okay? Asking for clarification when you don't understand something or you don't understand someone's perspective rather than just digging in and attacking them. And I think there are a lot of people that could use that kind of lesson today. Okay, so we're going to do another activity related to photography. And I don't know if you can see this very well. I put a link in your there's a copy of it in your handout, and there's also a link so that you can look at it. It's from Common Sense Media. And I saw this in my 13-year-old's junior high media center, okay? And it's all about when should you post a picture of someone else online, okay? Raise your hand. Have any of you ever had somebody post a picture of you that you just weren't happy about? Why not? What was the circumstance? Or you're nodding. You didn't like the photo, maybe you didn't feel like it captured you at your best. Yeah, and sometimes it might not be malicious in any way. You know, one of my best friends, she's adorable, but she hates having pictures posted without first going in and editing and filtering them. And for me, I'm a storyteller. You know, it's like I could care less if you see 2 chins, 3 chins, whatever. You know, I have chins, who cares? So, but I'm trying to tell the story of I'm with a group of friends and we're having a good time. And if somebody's worried about my chins, you know, they're missing the whole point. Then what I've written along with the picture isn't entertaining enough or funny enough, right? There's something wrong with that. But she has a totally different perspective. And so I've learned not to post pictures of her. I let her post the pictures that have her in them to represent how she wants to be represented. So this poster that I saw, I thought it was really great and something that you could use with students. You know, you want to share a photo, think about, you know, is it a good photo? Would my friend agree? If it's a no, it stops right there. Could it get my friend into trouble? Is it going to cause drama? Am I aware that anyone can share it? Would I be okay with my grandma seeing it? That's a good litmus test. Not just my mom, but my grandma. And then a year from now, will I feel good about making this public? Something that occurred to me was, let's say someone came to this conference today and their boss hadn't given them approval. So let's say they took a personal day and paid for it out of pocket. But I'm over here taking pictures. Oh, look, I'm over here with Jane Doe and we're having a great time. But maybe Jane Doe doesn't want her boss to see that she actually ended up coming here. She didn't really do anything wrong, but she just may not want to be identified here, have it public. Okay, so on that note, what I want you to do is you're going to get in groups, and each group is going to take a group photo. Okay, and it can be a selfie, or do you know the term USSY? When it's more than just yourself, it's an USSY. Okay, and I think what I'd like you to do is just split into two big groups. Okay, and so you can either take an USSY, you can ask somebody else in the room to take your picture, but you need to figure out, does everybody want to be in the picture? And if not, how are you going to deal with that? And somebody in the group, I'm hoping in each group, uses Instagram regularly, which means your password and you can log in. Not that just that you have an account. And I want you to take a photo, group, deal with if people don't want to be in it, and post it with the hashtag for the conference, which is TDLS 19. Okay? So what will happen is these pictures will go into the pot with all the other pictures from the conference. Okay? So just take one picture, but you all have to agree that that's the picture that gets posted that represents your group. Okay, did everyone get a picture posted?
Yes.
Okay, and as the teacher, how can you tell that the students actually did the assignment? By looking at the hashtag and seeing that it posts, right? Okay, so was there anybody in your group who did not want their picture taken? Okay, and so what did you end up doing?
I hid my face.
You hid your face. Okay, the other solution could have been that you're the photographer and the rest of the group are the subject. So at least that still gives you something to do and to be a part of it rather than just, sitting aside. But that was very clever. I like it. Okay, but that's really important to teach your students to be sensitive to that and to be aware of that. I like to use activities where I'll send students on a scavenger hunt and they have to take pictures of themselves at different locations on campus or, to show that they know where to find different resources or things like that. But, just like I do with my kid, she and her friends go to Starbucks, take a picture of yourself in front of the Starbucks. I can see it's you and I can see you're wearing the same thing that you left the house in this morning, and so I know it's you in that moment. As opposed to, with students, they could download a picture from the school website to say, oh yeah, I went to the library, I went to the counselor's office. But if you have them take their picture in front of the office, they're proving that they were actually there. Okay, any questions about this? I think this is part of that. Cyberbullying is just a huge issue related to digital citizenship. How you treat people and the things that you say, are permanently out there, right? And that kind of leads to the next activity a little bit, but I think cyberbullying is it's like a whole, thing in and of itself. I thought about doing an activity related to that, and how am I going to keep that in 50 minutes? There's just no way, but that is absolutely something that you want to address with students. And I think that's a very good point that it doesn't have to just be words. It can be pictures. You take a really unflattering picture of somebody and post it. Have any of you seen the show on Netflix called 13 Reasons Why? Okay, so it's not spoiling anything. It's about a girl who kills herself, and she leaves 13 cassette tapes, high tech, but she makes it difficult for her classmates to figure out why. What are the 13 reasons that led up to her making this choice? And a big part of what happens to her is someone taking a picture, sending it out, and the impact that it has on her life. And so I actually listed that and a film called 8th Grade on your list here. If you're sharing this with any students that you have that are parents, recommend that they watch them themselves first, but they are both excellent examples of the world that our kids are growing up in right now, right? And not even necessarily for us to have an understanding, but to understand what their lives are like and what they're having to navigate, really important. And a lot of us, in our classes, we have students who have kids. And even if the students grew up in the United States, you know, we didn't necessarily grow up with these technologies, especially social media. So cyberbullying, especially for any students that you have that are parents. But you know, cyberbullying could happen among your students too, right? I mean, you would hope not, but. So, but talking about the kind of the digital footprint, and when you post things, they're permanent. Yes, yes. So I kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but it's in your materials. Again, we just don't have time to go through it in depth, but if we were to do this like as a 3-hour hands-on workshop, I would absolutely have you go through some of those materials and evaluate them and see what you could use. Part of what they have is they have like, this is Common Sense Media, they have curriculum materials where they have sort of a fake Facebook or social media environment, and you know, screenshots and conversations, and even things like comparing 2 different applicants for a job, and you're looking at their online presence, right? What do job recruiters and college admissions offices do now when people apply? Yeah, they're going to Google you. Also, if anybody is out there in the online dating world, as soon as someone gets your full name, guess what they're doing? They are Googling you. So you want to take a look and see what you look like, right? And you should do this fairly frequently. And as Susan mentioned earlier, I don't know if all of you were here yet, but that there are strategies that you can use to try to affect what comes up in the Google. But basically, I looked at this a couple of days ago and realized most of what's in the, you know, like at least the first page is pretty good and, you know, pretty accurate representation of me, nothing I'm embarrassed about or wouldn't want somebody to see. It's pretty much all professional. The one thing that I did catch that made sense is that my personal Instagram was coming up instead of my professional Instagram. And I use a pseudonym for my personal account so that students can't find me, or, you know. And Karla Frizler, if you do a search for K Frizler or Karla Frizler, you should see all my professional stuff, but my personal one was coming up. And then it made sense. Oh, this is why so many of my colleagues are trying to connect on my personal account. So what I did was I realized in my settings, I had my actual name in the settings. So I changed it to my pseudonym, but like Susan said, it's going to take a few weeks before it comes up. So for now, my personal account is still showing up in the first page when you search for Karla Frizler. Okay, thank you. So yeah, so, and you know, okay, no horribly embarrassing pictures, it's all right. I can't really control it. You know, Saddleback College, I teach there occasionally. Here you can find my Twitter, my Facebook, excellent. And again, so this is where I caught, oh, this is my personal Instagram, not my professional. Here you see some videos that I've done for OTAN, and then this is kind of random. It's an old account from, that's like, it's like an archived version of my old resume. So if somebody's looking at that now, they're going to miss a whole bunch of stuff about me. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get rid of that. So Susan, you might have some ideas about how I do that. Oops, oh. But we'll deal with that after. But anyway, what you can do for now, and again, this is what, yes. So on page 2 of your handout, which is kind of misleading because the cover you would think would be page 1, but it's not. So go to page 2. And it says sample activities. And there's a Common Sense Media activity that I recommend, like I said, about 2 different profiles for somebody who's applying to college and kind of looking at what's the view someone's going to see if they're Googling you. But if you have your phone with you right now, just go ahead and Google yourself. And you want to put your first name and last name in quotations. Right, so don't be logged into or log out of your Google account if you're logged into it. And then just do a quick little search, and one of the things you can look at is what's the total number of results. That's kind of interesting. How many pages? So yesterday when I searched, it was 1,800 results. Today it's 1,970. Okay, and then do all the listings relate to you, or are there others with your name? There are thousands of you, so somebody might get the wrong impression if your picture isn't associated. Which link appears first? Is this an accurate representation of you? And are there any links that you want to appear higher in the list? You can control pages that you create. You can put keywords, including your full name, so that those sites will appear higher in your list. So like, for example, yesterday in the list, it had my website where you can go and find all my conference materials, things like that. Today it's not showing up, or here it's not showing up. So anyway, so these are, and again, this could be an entire class activity to go through, figure out what's on there, if there's anything you want to change, and then teaching students how to make those changes. So you can see there are all kinds of issues around this, and as a teacher, are you an expert in every technology there is? So be careful, you kind of have to tailor the activities and what you're covering in your classroom. If you're teaching computer science class, that's different. If you're teaching ESL or you're teaching ABE, ASC, you may not be able to get in depth into these kinds of
Sorry, that was just a mosquito.
these topics. But as I mentioned before, the ISTE standards, there's one standard that's specific to being a good digital citizen. So, and it's in 4 different parts. Students cultivate and manage their digital identity and reputation and are aware of the permanence of their actions in the digital world. Which activity did we do that relates to 2A? Photo and Googling yourself? Okay. And then 2B, students engage in positive, safe, legal, and ethical behavior when using technology, including social interactions online or when using network devices. So which activity? The first one that we did? Okay. So again, what we would do in a more in-depth workshop is I would make sure that you have at least a couple examples that support each of these different indicators for this standard. But it's a nice framework to use to help kind of keep on track with what you're doing in the classroom. And you'll notice that none of these mention specific technologies themselves, right? Because what happens? Technology changes constantly, right? You'd have to be changing the standards constantly. But this is a really good resource. Yes, I will, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. So just to summarize, I wanted to share this quote from Common Sense Media, which is really, I think, kind of sums it all up. Being a good digital citizen is more than knowing your way around the web. It's about empowering your students with skills to think critically, behave safely, and participate responsibly online, allowing them to connect and collaborate in meaningful ways. And if you think about this behind everything that you're doing using technology, it will help you to model for your students and also to integrate these ideas into your use of technology in the classroom. And Susan had a very good point. She was asking if you wanted me or one of the other OTAN trainers to come to your agency, or better yet, your consortia, your region, to do a training that's much more in-depth, and we can really get into these subjects like cyberbullying or controlling when people Google you, what they see, things like that, and actually go in and see how you can impact that and change that. You can send a request to OTAN asking for a face-to-face workshop. So we could do that. We could do webinars. I think for this topic, a face-to-face workshop is probably the most useful, I would think. But any form that would be helpful to you, you can request. And you can also request any topic that you need or that you're interested in. If you do a survey of your faculty and they've identified areas where they need help, you do the technology survey for your tech and distance learning plan, go through that and look, and if there are any gaps in there, see if OTAN can help you fill them. But if you don't see something on the OTAN website that's already being offered, ask for it. We can create whatever you need, and we can actually work with your agency to create something that's tailored for you, okay? And then all of my materials, if you want to download this, presentation or the handout so that you have live links to everything that I've recommended for you, you can go to frizteach.weebly.com, and all my conference materials are there. And then that's my email address, kfriz@me.com, if you want to keep in touch with me directly. And I believe if you can do the evaluation, and be honest if there's anything I spent too much time on, or if there's something you wish we could have covered, or put that in there. It doesn't like reflect poorly on me. It's actually very helpful for the next time we do a workshop or a training to know what to do. Yeah. But that's why I wanted to do, I could show you videos and be up here all this, but I thought, it's much more important for you to actually do some activities. And I myself, I like to do something as a participant that I can then go and take and use with my students. And even if you just have one idea that you take away from here, I think that would be great. So, okay, well, I guess it's time for lunch then. Enjoy. I'll see you over there.